Fortnite's latest marketing gimmicks have been extremely interesting, and there's a lot of signs that point towards our beloved 7 finally returning to the storyline after so many years. If you love Fortnite and you love the story, this is the place to be, so go ahead and drop a like and subscribe if you are new. And of course, hit me up in the comments section or in the Dr. P Discord for a chance to be featured in the next video. First up though, let's talk a little bit about the Ice King, who is set to return in Chapter 7, which mind you is in less than a month, so we are very close to a new chapter. It's gonna be really interesting because not only is he going to be in Chapter 7 apparently as a villain, but he's also going to be in the OG Chapter 1 Season 7. I guess that could change, but the Ice King was the main character of that season. Assuming there are no major changes, how is he supposed to exist in both OG and Chapter 7's island at the same time? That's a brilliant question that we're gonna have to get an answer for eventually if the Ice King is featured in Chapter 1 Season 7 OG, because we know he's going to be featured in Chapter 7. The Ice Storm and the Iceberg are already in the game files, and it won't be too long until it starts floating over and is visible on the OG island. This is gonna be fun to keep an eye on. I've seen some people theorize that it could be the Ice Queen in place of the Ice King that's coming in on the Iceberg this time around, thus eliminating the possibility of him being in two places at the same time. So select content creators were able to get this Chapter 7 teaser inviting them to what appears to be early access of Chapter 7 on November 19th, which I think is a terrible idea. We don't need to get into that now, but basically it's going to spoil and ruin a lot of things for a lot of people, I think. Leaking is one thing, but this is going a bit too far. Anyway, this appears to be some sort of classified transmission coming in, with some coordinates at the top that actually take you to the Hollywood sign in California. That's not the first time a real spot in California has been a major part of a Fortnite storyline, so we'll see how that plays out exactly, and I don't know if this is related, probably not at all to be honest with you, but it just so happens that the Springfield map that we're on right now has a Simpsons sign that looks a lot like the Hollywood sign. I don't know, just some food for thought. The teaser also says, now playing 0 Hour, Chapter 7. Let's tackle 0 Hour first. Basically, it is a time in which a planned operation, typically a military one, is set to begin. So clearly something serious is about to take place. It also gives off sort of a desperate vibe in my mind, as if like 0 Hour means like you're running out of time, like it's your last chance, which kind of makes sense when you consider what's currently going on Oninoshima as we play around in Springfield. But honestly, that's not even the biggest part of this whole teaser. If you go back to the Chapter 7 part, 7 is completely written out as a word, the first time we've ever seen Epic refer to a specific chapter with it written out like that instead of just using the number. That seems to be pretty intentional. You can't tell me that's not just super thought out, and obviously people's minds immediately rush to the most iconic characters this game has ever seen, the 7, who, by the way, have that name of their faction completely spelled out as well, with no number. The last real time the 7 were directly involved with the storyline was when Paradigm made the self-sacrifice during Zero Fusion. People have been talking about the background of this teaser as well, which is extremely hard to make out, like you really can't see anything to be honest, but some people are claiming that they can see the visitor kind of warped in the background there. I'm kind of torn on this one though, you know, in some ways I can see it, and it would make sense. I just don't think it's clear enough, if anything, what that is, but I would not rule it out. The Los Angeles Dodgers recently won the World Series, which probably sounds really random and stupid to say, but the reason I bring that up is because before the Game 7 of that series, there were several different people dressed up as Fortnite characters there at the game holding up some really interesting signs. Big Dill, Peely, and the Brat were holding up signs advertising Chapter 7, where they once again had 7 all the way spelled out on multiple signs, with another sign saying November 20th. 29th, which is when Chapter 7 drops. And staying consistent with the previous teaser we talked about, they chose to do this at a Los Angeles Dodgers game. Their stadium is only 6.9 miles away from the Hollywood sign, so it's very close. On top of all that stuff, Mark Rain, who is the co-founder of Epic Games, has pledged to keep giving the storyline the love it deserves. Then he followed that up by quoting a tweet that was talking about the Seven's return, as it just came out that there is the 7 logo on the vest of Peely here. He says, "You people are just imagining things. Let's take a deep breath, count to 10 and let it go. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Spelt out 7, 8, 9, 10. Do we feel better now? Relaxation is key." That sure seems to paint a pretty obvious picture. In a world where the 7 does return, as Restro points out, it's very likely, if not certain, the Imagined Order and the Last Reality would sort of just come hand in hand because of how heavily they're all intertwined. But many of the 7 are chromed and their existence is being sculpted anew by the Last Reality. So we're gonna have to get past that first. Sans brings up the fact that the Origin was able to escape the corruption of the Last Reality before joining the 7. Of course, he was the Cube King at one point, and somehow found his way to becoming a 7 member. So on one hand, maybe that's how this all gets started. Maybe he's able to break the chain, so to speak, and overcome the corruption again because he already did it once. If that were to happen, that would be a nice segue into this next point. What if we use important people or objects to try and snap the rest of the 7 members out of it? As far as we can tell, the corrupted 7 members are the Foundation, the Origin, and the Order, the 2 leaders, and the girl that took the Origin's orders very seriously. Seeing your own team fight against you has to be very emotional, and if the Imagined survived the 0 point like Geno did, true family drama could be headed our way. Going back to the Origin overcoming the Last Reality's corruption before, LEGO brings up a really good idea for why his description says his reality lives on. Maybe as the Cube King, he was about to put an end to his homeworld, but something didn't sit right with him when attempting to do it. So maybe he ended up sparing his own reality, leaving the Last Reality, and joining the 7, which would make complete sense for why his description is, his reality lives on. I gotta say, going through a season or a chapter where the 7 who have been on our side from the very beginning end up being the people we have to defeat would be so cool. Regardless of what happens though, we absolutely need to get some backstory on the 7. I really hope they'll come back in Chapter 7. Everything's kind of lining up, even with the things that are happening in Fortnite OG right now. But it's crazy to me how important the 7 are to Fortnite's story even years later when we haven't seen them in forever, and we just have so many open plot holes that we've got to figure out and things have got to get solved for. So having the 7 come back and just kind of wrap everything up would be so cool to see. Drop a like on this video if you want to see the 7 return, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future content. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.